Thank you, Annie. And joined on the panel today, I've got Tom van Arman, who's Smart City Strategist and Future City Maker, founder and director for Tapp. Kurt Schlager, Head of Network Evolution at Group Technology and Future Services at A1 Telekom in Austria. Ron Porter, Head of Network and OSS Product Marketing for Amdocs. And Jacob Groote, who's Executive Vice President for 5G at KPN in the Netherlands. So I think we've got a really good group of people. And I'd encourage you to post questions through the Q&A on the chat, but to kind of get things moving, I'm going to start with the obvious opening question when we're thinking about monetizing 5G in urban applications, which is what is the killer use case for 5G in urban applications? And Jacob, I was wondering if you might be able to start with that one for me, please.
Well, thank you, Paul, for introduction, and a really good question. But I think I need to be honest. I don't think there is a killer application at this moment in time for 5G. And let me elaborate a little bit on that. When I started the rollout of 5G in the commercial services to make them available in the Netherlands, I developed 6 field labs to really demonstrate to application providers, but also to our customer in different segments, what we could do with all the new capabilities which are introduced in 5G. And they were really meant to inspire people, etc. And out of that came a lot of ideas how to continue. And one of the applications which maybe in this topic when we're talking about smart cities is quite interesting is the interaction between a ambulance with a traffic light system, so that he always gets a green light and can continue its drive. Who would thought about that in the past? Because maybe the interaction would be possible, but the reliability that it always works, so that the driver can really rely on that, is one of the things that 5G really educated and learned us to make use of that. And it saves in the Netherlands now every day an accident between regular traffic and an ambulance. With introducing this, is it a killer app? No, but it demonstrates that you have more opportunities. And out of that, people came up with other ideas which you can do in a smart city environment. So to recap, there is no killer app. We really need to inspire people, give examples, etc. And out of that, we will learn and get a lot of opportunities where the functionality, the new functionality of 5G really help to solve real issues in society.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. And I think that's a really powerful point, that actually innovative services then help spark ideas for other innovative services. So I think, Kurt, are you going to give me an answer that there is a killer app, or is it more complex than that from your perspective as well?
Unfortunately, I would say I would follow Jacob. I don't see the one killer app on emerging, actually, like in 2G when we accidentally sort of stumbled across the SMS. But what I think is that, not at least COVID has, I would say, propelled the trend for the urbanization in a way. So people or the population are moving out of cities, going into the urban environment, and with that there will be a need to cover even high speeds and on the rural environment. I think we're doing that a lot with freeing up our mid-bands actually from 3G traffic. We're going into the sunsetting of 3G here, making it available for the 5G spectrum as well, and that giving the B2C sector at least the speed uplift which they should receive in the urban environment. And I would then still separate the B2B environment here. I think as well there will be the upcoming need for what 5G can service or can offer in the urban environment as well, because a lot of factories we see in this urban environment will benefit from the low latency services, gamings, all the industry 4.0 use cases we see to emerge on these sectors, let alone the agriculture, which will see a tremendous move in terms of vectoring and monetizing on data actually. So I think on the one hand, B2C, which will see this speed uplift and the benefit from taking out legacy solutions. I think still that is a service which we will deliver strongly in the rural environment, and on the other hand, the industry deserving this low latency and data application monetization in a way.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that urban to rural move is a really interesting one, and perhaps one that we hadn't foreseen a year and a half ago. So I'm sure in your kind of network evolution role, that's been quite a busy time trying to work that one through. Ron, from a kind of a network and OSS perspective, have you got a slightly alternative perspective, or are you pretty much aligned with the operators?
I think, it's a recurring question, and my answer used to be is that if I knew what the 5G killer app, I'd probably be off there working for that company creating that app. But again, I think we have to appreciate the fact that although it seems like we've been talking about 5G for I don't know how many years, and there's a lot of kind of talking before, and then it started to roll out, and there was all this expectation to see all the value immediately. And again, like was mentioned before by Jakob and Kurt, it's not about a single solution, about this whole ecosystem of partners and essentially a way to platformize the network so that different applications and different startups and innovative services can emerge that can leverage the 5G network, but now in more unique ways, right? So much less of if the network used to be more of a one-size-fits-all kind of infrastructure, the fact that you can now start, and much of it has been said around areas like latency or density of services, or even edge resources, and the edge is now becoming an integral part. So, different application providers can now leverage the network in the way they need, and operators can monetize in new ways, right? And it's similar to what happened in the cloud. I think for many years, people thought of cloud in the beginning. We don't remember it now. Cloud was thought of just for storage, a little bit like 5G today is. People look and just see the faster speed. So it's just this one element. All right, it's nice. Not sure that we need it. And I'm sure if you look at what the cloud was 10 years ago and what it is today, there's no one single killer app in the cloud. It's whole this world of possibilities, right? And I think it's exciting times because this is exactly the stage with all the POCs and trials, be it in urban or agriculture or factories or ports, and again, you're seeing all these players in these different areas looking how to leverage all of these new features that we have in the 5G network in new ways.
And I think that's a really, really interesting analogy there, Ron, about the cloud. I think that's this is a network potentially that's going to become a platform technology for others, and I think that is a really good observation. That's a pretty exciting time. Tom, I think you're bringing a slightly different angle to look at this. So again, is there a killer app from your perspective?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a killer app, because I definitely want to riff on what Ron was just saying about it is still kind of early stage. So it's about rapid experimentation and exploration. So I'm looking at it from two sides. One is the business to business, but business to government side. The governments have lots of responsibilities to make sure that their services are running to keep our cities safe and accessible and livable and those kinds of things. And so therefore the work that we're doing with 5G here in a living lab is really important to explore those apps, right? I mean, it's still super early stage to define the killer app, because it is just coming online. And we're also rebooting from this kind of post-pandemic where everybody was learning remotely, working remotely. And so that becomes interesting as well. Like for me as an architect, how this massive broadband will definitely impact design as well, in terms of business sizes of business parks and remote working and co-working and those kinds of concepts. The other side of it too is like, for example, on a practical side, so this rapid experimentation stuff is that we're working on that with the city every day. So just before I came on this meeting, we were talking about the 5G tests that we're doing with some of the the crowd monitoring that's going on in the arena, the public, the famous Ajax arena, and why do we have to move the cameras to get better positions? If we had broader, broader band for a 5G connection, then we get higher resolution. So we don't need to be mucking around with moving infrastructure around. We can just kind of bump up the bandwidth. So it's lots of mini projects. For example, last week I was talking to the guys earlier last week about drone technologies, autonomous vehicles. Those things are now being tested in living labs, and 5G is a core component of that, because you can't rely on one network alone. You need the real urban infrastructure, digital infrastructure, to be flying either food takeaway across the city, or we were also testing the autonomous boats here to deal with new delivery systems, to decomplicate our streets and those kinds of things. So it's about, for me, it's still super early. It's about rapid experimentation and figuring out what the value of 5G is as a new infrastructure for our future city.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think, yeah, again, so some interesting angles there, particularly the stadium angle. That not everything needs massive amounts of coverage, but some things do. I think when we think about where we're heading, yeah, I think the key message from all of you has been it's early days and it's experimentation. So if I'm going to be a little bit contentious, maybe, we're in a world at the moment where the operators have potentially struggled to monetize the value of some of the services they deliver and been pushed towards being a bit carrier. So very open question, which I'm sure doesn't have any easy answers, but how can operators monetize 5G to realize additional value? How can they get a share of that additional utility? And Kurt, perhaps we can start with you on that one.
Yeah. So my humble belief is that, reflecting on what your first question was, actually, what is the killer app? I don't think that necessarily, again, there is the killer app, but I think there is the killer system, which is basically the service orchestrator, or the service orchestration as such, which enables us, from an operator point of view, to expose our networks, sharing that with the partner infrastructure, monetize on that data infrastructure together with partners, but also enable us for a quality of service-based billing. And last but not least, within slicing, which is one of the key factors of 5G, clearly. And I think the monetization of 5G is clearly, pushing us into that direction, so moving away from this transactional-based environment which we are living in, towards a quality of service-based environment where we're giving the systems, the consumers, like Tom was referring to, the bandwidth actually they need at that certain point of time when they really need it, in a very dynamic way. So I think this is the key factor and enabler how we should monetize 5G further, through quality, not so much through transactions anymore.
Okay, I think that's a great summary. Thank you, Kurt. Tom, I'm going to come back to you with your perhaps more governmental perspective on that. Can you see any specific angles in that domain?
Yeah, I think I love that attitude of quality, because it's about reliability, independence. When a lot of these services are dependent on these kinds of things, I think it should be about the quality of the connections and the quality of the resolutions in some cases, or the response times and those kinds of things. So I really like that angle, because when it comes to the government, it's all about trust, right? You have to trust the government to be providing these services for the lower income groups, or for the first responders, or for you name it. And so I think that what's exciting for me is that you can start really leapfrogging over the analog kinds of solutions and really start exploring the new disconnected, remote and portable kinds of solutions. But then it will definitely come down to the reliance on that technology, or that that digital infrastructure, to make sure that the experience is great, that the services are good, and above all reliable. And so I think that goes into the quality side of it.
I think, again, thank you very much. Ron, I think from the conversation we had previously, I think this is an area that you're actually pretty passionate about, and you've been doing a lot of thinking, so I'd welcome your input.
So again, it's another ongoing question, how to monetize 5G, and we often hear, we work with, all these operators around the world. There's always this concern of the 4G scenario repeating itself, right? Operators are, they were, I think, many of them had a bad experience of investing all the money to deploy the 4G, and then all these over-the-top applications came and they got most of the revenue. So because, essentially the only currency there was the connectivity, and once the speed was good enough, right, you could watch your Netflix, or order the Airbnb or Uber or whatnot. And once again, this ties into the potential benefits in 5G, and again, not the 5G that is today, but what we are evolving to, where the operator and the different currencies or different capabilities it can give to different applications puts the operator in a stronger position in this value chain. And I very much agree to what Kurt said before. It's not, you have to find new ways, more of charging for the experience, not for how and what was delivered, right? And Kurt mentioned service orchestration and the fact that you need a very streamlined, we talked about experience, having this real-time digital experience we're all used to know and expect from everything we do around. That's going to have to apply to any new 5G service we bring into play, right? So from the click and the order in the self-service app, or in the partner portal, or in the enterprise portal for the enterprise, to getting it down and making it happen across the network, from the radio through the edge all the way to the core, and the different models. So these are not trivial things. So it, on the one end, it adds a lot of complexity, but I think all the discussions that's happening now, and things like the operators and including the examples we have here on the call, everybody is experimenting and looking into that, is to hide the complexity and just bring the value to the end customer, right? Because the end customer, be it a consumer or an enterprise or a partner that want to leverage the 5G network, they want the seamless, real-time digital experience. Getting, if they paid for reliability, they need to get their reliability, and you need to make sure they get it. If they pay for something else, again, whatever is conveyed to them. So those are some of the challenges that are happening today in the industry, and I think that's why everybody is aligning and trying to get all these systems and ecosystem of partners to work together in a very streamlined way.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think, Jakob, a lot's been said already, but I'm still going to throw you the challenge of adding some additional insight, please.
Yeah, it's so nice to hear all these words from Ron and Tom and Kurt, because I heard the word value and bringing value to the end user or the enterprise, etc. Because I think that's really the key word where it's all about. And why do I think that? I was responsible for rolling out a 4G network from a technology perspective 10 years ago within KPN. And then we were all talking about 4G, and we were trying to sell 4G. We never tried to talk into the language of our customers, etc. And now with the shift, doing all the experiments, all the proof of concepts, we really want to try to deliver value to customers. And if you're talking about value, you need to understand what really matters for that customer. So we're changing our language to what's really appreciated by customers. So I think we should try to avoid talking about selling 5G. We should sell connectivity with the reliability, etc. And then think about what are the extra functionalities where a government really builds the trust upon, as an example, to work upon Tom's statement. If we know that, then we can also say, okay, this is the value that we now bringing to you. And at the moment that people really appreciate the value, they will also understand that value comes with a price. So the basic connectivity is what you sell at first, and then add some value-added services on top of that, talking into the language of your customer. And then I think almost automatically people will start to realize, okay, this is real value for me. This is really important for me. Now I can bring the digital service to the inhabitants of my city. They are willing to pay for that, or at least part of the value which is generated. And it doesn't matter whether it's a government whether it's the consumer, when it's a speed button for a higher speed because he needs to download something very quickly, or it's an enterprise building its business processes around the reliability of the 5G network, etc. And we've done these experiments with Shell Refinery in Rotterdam, for instance. They are really willing to pay for that extra value that we are generating. So let's educate ourselves. Let's learn from our past behavior, talk into the language of our customers so that they really understand what we are selling and don't sell technology, but sell value.
That's a really, really great point, Jacob, and thank you for that. The whole point, I think, as an industry, you're right, we have a habit of talking in G's and technical terms rather than explaining to the users the benefit that they will see from that. So I think that's actually really valuable. Just to remind everybody on the call, we have the Q&A open. We've got a great panel here, some really broad experience. So I would love to have some questions from the audience. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting, hopefully for somebody to type something in, I think what we had there, the theme there was talking about moving beyond best efforts connectivity. The big thing here was moving onto services that need more and can benefit from more, and orchestrating them in an easy to use and easy to explain way. So if we kind of extend that view, you know, kind of throwing a bit of a long ball here, but you know, what comes after the applications we've discussed already? So you know, in an urban environment, smart cities, those sort of things, what do you see as the art of the possible in 5 or even 10 years time? You know, where are we heading? And Tom, perhaps you could speculate a little bit. You're engaged in the Futures Lab, so hopefully you've had some thoughts on this.
Yeah, so yeah, of course I do, but but I definitely want to kind of package it in the whole vision of what Jacob was talking about explaining in a way that not only consumers understand, but also cities, municipal parties, and also citizens understand. What does a 3G powered city look like? What does a 4G powered city look like? What does a 5G powered city look like? And when you can kind of explain it visually or just simplistically, then I think you get more adoption, more acceptance, and more enthusiasm about what's possible. When you start seeing what when you're shopping online for your 2 phones, you get to compare them. And I think that's what citizens and the public need to see right now, is that this is what a 5G empowered city looks like. And with these services, you can start dealing with much more last mile delivery services, mobility as a service solutions. You can deal with more autonomy and more independence and more freedom and more portability, all of those concepts built into either the services. And how does 5G help the city itself reach their agendas or their mandates? And communicating that back to the citizens or the consumers is really, really, really key. I'm not going to go on all of the wonderful concepts of what 5G can enable. I think it's important now to get that confidence and get that support and get that enthusiasm from the public to understand what 5G means for their day in life. How does 5G improve their experience, their work, their lives, and the city services next to them?
Okay, no, thank you. I think that's, again, a really good perspective, that we need to make sure people understand what they need rather than just throwing technology at them and hoping it sticks. Ron, anything to add to that?
I just think, we're talking about the focus of this panel is urban environment, and I think the advantages in the urban environment is, I think that's the first place we'll really start to see like multiple layers of innovation, because naturally the optimal 5G coverage will start around the cities, and many operators can also focus their various edge offerings depending what tier of edge you're talking about. You might have an edge at the city level, maybe even edge at a neighborhood level. There's many different ways to explore this. And you mentioned the city of the future and 5G. This applies to on the application level, on the business model level, right? So maybe the city can have an IoT services provided either directly from the service provider or from a partner that does the integration and collects all the data from the street lights to the traffic cans to the garbage trucks or whatever, incorporating a real-time CCTV from different corners with dashboard cameras on cars to prevent collisions or help find parking. Maybe that's offered as a service to consumers who opt in and buy to that. And these are just examples, you know, I think we can go on and on all day. The point being is that when the platform is there and you know, edge and different slices and the dynamic orchestration of the service and the network are there to enable that, it's really just, you know, just like today, again, going back to the first cloud analogy, if you have today a startup, you don't need to buy servers to support a few million users worrying you're going to be incredibly successful, right? You start up and the cloud takes care of it. Same thing here. If you need millisecond connectivity or you need a different amount of density, right, that's going to be available for you. So really, I think, accelerate the path to innovation from different angles.
Cool. Okay, thank you. And I think we've got a question from the audience that I'm going to jump to present to our two operator colleagues. And all I can say is I'm glad I'm no longer working for an operator. So the question is really, what percentage of enterprise technology spend in a business-to-business world will be on connectivity, and what would be on hardware, so compute, storage, devices and sensors, and what would be on services, value-added services and apps? And then the blunt statement, it looks like operators are going to lose out yet again, and the hyperscales are laughing. So I think, you know, this worry of actually how much of the value goes to the people that are providing the enabling connectivity. Jakob, do you fancy answering that question first?
Yeah, let me try to answer it, and I fully agree with you. Although I still love to work for an operator, I don't know whether I can answer it correctly in the percentages. But if we start to talk about value, then I think the services are the most important things where we should concentrate on. And in order to perform these services, you need the hardware, etc. But the hyperscalers can't live without the connectivity in that. So that is probably an ecosystem that we also need to develop in that. And we also need to be aware, and I think all operators are aware, that this is a very important type of cooperation which is needed between the hyperscalers and the telcos in order to do that. We can't live without the hyperscalers, with all their cloud services and the ecosystem around that. But also the hyperscalers can't live without the high quality networks that we deliver to them, and especially that we deliver to our end user enterprise customers in that sense. And at the moment that we start to realize that, and I have the impression that a couple of hyperscalers are really realizing that, and for sure everybody can make a next step and work upon that, and maybe outplay somebody, etc. But I think it's like in biology, you need the two entities, and if they stick together, you build up something which is nicer than if only one of the species was available. I think we should treat it in that sense, and then it's an equilibrium. It's a symbiosis between the different parties, and we can both earn a good living out of that. And for the telcos, most importantly, we can earn so much money that we can also do the investments in 6G or 7G or all kinds of other technologies, which makes life much better for all the people living in these big cities and the municipalities, and help Tom to implement the architectures that he has in mind.
Okay, great, thank you. We've got a couple of other questions coming in. Is there anything quickly, Kurt, you want to add to that one, or has Jakob covered?
I was just thinking when Jakob was saying, and we need to go into a cooperation rather than a or going to a competition in a way. I see myself as an operator very much enabling and partnering with the hyperscalers, so embracing their benefits. The benefits they have is clearly, the cloudification journey they already made through. The benefits we have is that we have the footprint, we have the connectivity, we have a lot of customer connections already. We're seeing us, at least as a bit of an enabler for our customers. So whatever the customer wants to get from the hyperscaler will be enabled through us, through our networks, and we need to still develop how this revenue sharing model will be looking like when we're going into these partnerships. But in the end, fully agree to what Jakob said, the one cannot live without the other anymore.
Okay, no, thank you. I think certainly agree with that perspective. Another question coming on the Zoom is, there appear to be two views of what 5G is. One is a monoculture of 5G new radio, and it is the only solution. Or two, a het net of different technologies, 5G new radio, 4G, NB-IoT, Wi-Fi 6, etc. Which is correct, or is it both? And when you all say 5G in this panel, which are you referring to? I know what my view is, but I'm the moderator. So I'm going to ask Ron what your perspective is on this one.
I think it's an evolutionary process, and it will be interesting to see where things play out too. But for sure today, I think talking about 5G to me is much more talking about the dynamic and programmable network, and that might also apply to other types of Gs or other type of connectivity types. And I mentioned before the edge. I can give, for example, the work we are doing in a 5G Open Innovation Lab in the US, and we're doing their use case around analyzing drone footage from drone footage of the crops, but then taking it, processing some at the edge, processing additional at the cloud. So much of there is around the application, orchestrating the application to the edge and how much data you're passing, backhauling over fixed wireless access connectivity. And there's different types of connectivity throughout that area. And again, with time, additional use cases will be added. And sensors might be using narrowband IoT and so on and so forth. So I think for sure at this stage, it's a matter of connecting various programmable network functions, also traditionally legacy physical functions where they're not going anywhere, but making it work and getting this new experience, like I mentioned before, from the user ordering the service that's he needs to get the value and making the network make that happen. Right. This is to me is like the 5G ecosystem, the 5G world. Obviously, in the long term, hopefully network slicing, etc., could really take care of all those angles, but it's a journey.
Okay, I think that makes sense. And Tom, I think you were already talked about the drone trials you were running about multiple networks. So do you kind of have a quick view on this as well?
Yeah, I mean, well, that comes down to the dependence that we're becoming more as a society more dependent on these kinds of connecting infrastructures. So when it comes to the electric vehicles, the Teslas, autopilots, and those kinds of things, they can save lives, but they can also cause some pretty horrible situations if we're not careful. So that's I'm not so interested in terms of those as solutions for our city. I think what is interesting is like how 5G can liberate us into doing new things. And there's a comment from Ajay Nier in the comments about IP cams, and that's exactly what we're doing with the city, is using an edge solution in terms of privacy by design camera that all of a sudden with 5G is portable, and so we can take down the old CCTV crap and install it with people counting solutions. And thanks to 5G, we can actually just send the numbers out and no data is leaving the device. And so when you start looking at the world that way, or looking at our built environments this way, I think you can get much more support and enthusiasm from the public about what 5G enables and not inhibits. I think that the IP cams and the edge computing and all that stuff combined with 5G is just going to be really, really exciting.
Okay, thank you. And I think you've also answered a point on Ajay's question as well. So thank you for that. Final question, because we're pretty much out of time. Are mobile operators looking for potential partners for applications, or currently are they just getting many requests? They don't need to look for them. Kurt, can we ask you to start with that one?
No, I think very clearly we're very much looking for this or trying to build up this potential ecosystem partnership of ecosystems, I would say. So we're very actively looking for those partners who help us to develop these new services. We're not sitting in the ivory tower and think, we have this one and only solution of service to offer to our customers. So yes, very actively looking, at least on the A1 side, for these potential partners. We have an own, let me say, entity built up for that. Who foster, startups, but also established companies, and bring them into our environment, let them use the data and applications and functions we have from the network and from our IT systems, and build something new together. So I think this is the power of 5G, as I said initially. So yes, very much looking for that.
Excellent, thank you. And Jakob, as the other operator representative here, I presume you're likely to say something similar.
No, I need to try to find something else, I think, Paul. But no, I think I agree with Kurt, and we have some context also between the operators, what we can do. But we're already, we have set up 5 years ago already a department which is organizing every 6 weeks, 2 months, a whole evening where we invite the startups and the startup community in the Netherlands to really meet us, tell them what they think they can do, and develop that engagement into, okay, we have a test environment where we can really bring that to, do you have the customers? Can we really validate it, that solution with our customers? And we're, for instance, doing that around the Johan Cruyff Arena together with Tom's team in Amsterdam. And that's really fostering that whole community, etc. So we're extremely focused on what's happening in the outside world, which could really deliver that value, that solution where somebody is looking for. And can we then help the farmer or the connected steward or something else? And out of that, it could also mean that our venturing department decides, this is a real startup. It's making some growth, etc. It could be that we even support it with some extra finance going into that and buying a share of that particular company for later purposes. So we are actively working on getting these corporations going to develop that symbiosis I talked about before.
Thank you. And Tom, I think you had your hand raised briefly, just 30 seconds
just,
if you can.
Sitting behind me is a whole team of AR, VR developers who are diving face first into this whole metaverse thing. And I would absolutely invite Jakob to come by and do some field testing with 5G in these new hybrid worlds that we're creating, digital twinning and cultural kinds of experiences. So come on by, Jakob, in terms of let's try this stuff out. Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
Sounds like a great application. Annie's just appeared back on my screen, so I'm going to just quickly do a 30-second sum up, which is to thank Ron, Jakob, Tom, and Kurt. I think what we've heard today is that there is no killer app for 5G at the moment. What there is a platform technology that we can, through partnerships and enabling people to understand the art of the possible, drive innovation, and a very strong belief that by offering more than just connectivity, by offering quality as well and some level of assurance, there's a revenue stream for operators to get a return on their investment. So again, thank you very much to the panel, and thank you for the audience for the questions we've had as well.
Thank you to all of you, and Paul, thank you for moderating.